Hello my friends, welcome to my channel. Operator Starsky here. It's been quite a while, so I think that we didn't have a stream for like a month or two, something like that. I'm very sorry, and I'm really happy to see you here tonight. It's almost 11 p.m. in Ukraine. Luckily, we didn't have no airstrike alarms tonight, and hopefully we will not. And I think you probably understand why it happens. So today we're going to discuss a bunch of interesting topics. One of them is oh, and by the way, before we begin, Denis Davidov. So I called him just like 10 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago, but probably like 20-30 minutes ago. And he told me he's fine. He passed his greetings to all of you guys, and he said that he broke his arm because he kind of slipped and fell down, something like that. But he said that everything is okay, his arm is fixed, and he will have to spend his next week, with his arm kind of fixed. But he will be fine, and he even told me that he's gonna have a video probably today. So don't forget to check it out. Not sure if he did it while skateboarding. I don't know. I tried skateboarding once. It's a very dangerous thing to do. Yeah. So Dennis is fine as he can be. Today we will talk a bit about the, how you call it, vacation season in Crimea. So as you can see, there's a bunch of things happening at this point. So there were a bunch of explosions noticed by people who were swimming, taking their rest on the beach, and basically we don't know what happened there. Even the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine has no clue. I swear. I mean, I can read you the official statement made by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. So they say that the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine cannot understand the reason for this fire that happened, but they and it's an official statement, but they remind you about the rules of security, avoiding smoking in wrong places and stuff like that. Yeah, and they also say that most probably Russians will find some kind of Ukrainian patch attached to some object or whatever. So one of the myths that Russians used a lot is it's called business card of Yarosh. I'm gonna tell you just a bit more about it. So Yarosh was a chief, a commander of a Ukrainian voluntary battalion. And when the war started in Ukraine in 2014, there was like a bunch of terrorist acts performed on the territory of on the uncontrolled territory of Donbass. Like some cars were blown up and stuff like that. And all this was in Russian media. And in those places, they found a business card, like a business card of Dmytro Yarosh. And this, it was hilarious. I mean, it was on the same level as that crucified boy nobody had seen. I mean, and this business card of Yarosh became a great meme here in Ukrainian media because it was so funny and hilarious. Probably Russians will find a bunch of business cards of Yarosh, probably of Zaluzhny, somewhere among the ruins of that airport in Novofedorovka, but we can't say for sure. Probably it's smoking. So whenever something starts exploding in Russian ammunition depots and other objects, establishments, factories, you tell me. So one of the recent fakes that Russians started to let's call it excuse, right? So one of the most recent excuse for that is a saltpeter. I swear. So when all this started, it happened right after Ukraine received HIMARS systems and started actively using them. So there was a bunch of explosions in their ammunition depots, and Russians started excusing that with a saltpeter. So they basically said that they brought a lot of saltpeter to, that is used to fertilize soil and stuff like that. And they said that all those explosions that you see on a video, all those numerous videos made by locals and whatever, that's a saltpeter. And they had same excuse when before the invasion they had those so-called humanitarian convoys illegally crossing the border between Russia and Ukraine, and they were delivering random stuff to the hybrid army, to those Russians without patches that were saying they were Donbas rebels. And every time after that, we would notice that the escalation, the number of artillery strikes would dramatically increase every time after those convoys and stuff like that. So we were joking with the guides that they were obviously bringing some explosive sausages, explosive pasta, and things like that. So basically it's the same with the saltpeter. Guys, if you are using saltpeter, you gotta think twice. I mean, you can destroy your whole garden with that. Saltpeter is very, very dangerous to use, proved by Russians. So I stumbled upon some interesting message from a Telegram. So this is a local Crimean Telegram channel, and Telegram is basically, for those who doesn't know, Telegram is a messenger widely used here in our part of the world. So It's a local Crimean Telegram channel. They share different news and stuff like that. So it says the number of civilian casualties as a result of those explosions at the airport increased or raised to 13 people, according to Ministry of Health of Crimea. It's been specified that all the patients except one received just minor traumas and were already brought home. And that red, you see that the text encircled in red says, we remind you that at the very airport, because of those self-igniting units of ammunition, bombs, and stuff, no less than 60 pilots died, and more than 100 pilots, as well as civilian persons serving at the airport, were wounded. So they are talking about 160 casualties that were taken at the airport in Novofedorovka. Which is interesting. Oh, and a lot of that's interesting, because I didn't read until the end. A lot of those people cannot be found because their bodies were turned into ash after igniting of 1.5 thousand tons of jet fuel, and because hundreds of tons of aviation ammunition exploded. I think it's kind of hot at those Crimean beaches at the moment. If you consider having a vacation on a Crimean beach, you gotta think twice, in my personal opinion. So probably it's like smoking. I mean, smoking is very bad. Smoking is a great excuse for, because smoking is the most widespread reason for all the bad things we have, all the evil. I think that, yeah, definitely smoking, and saltpeter, of course. Amnesty International. Oh my god, I wanted to discuss this so much. So, Amnesty International recently stated that the very presence of Ukrainian armed forces in the areas of where like civilians are, like the presence of armed forces in cities, in towns, in villages, whatever, is the reason why Russians shoot at those villages and cities and towns. I mean, okay, let's think about it this way. Where do they have to go? I mean, okay, there's like soldiers defending the city. If they go out of city, it will, I mean, we're talking on the level of like kindergarten, okay? If they go out of the city will be taken by invaders. And Ukrainian army will have to shoot at those cities, which is a bad idea because we're trying to avoid it. So, like, are they convincing us to give up or something. I mean, it's very... Or they probably think that... have you seen that movie Patriot with Mel Gibson? When they had those lines of soldiers, British army and those Americans, like lined up against each other somewhere in the field and shooting each other like with those old muskets. I think that probably Amnesty International, those guys are big fans of this movie because they probably think that this is the way that we should kind of fight. Okay, let's imagine that all the militaries, all the soldiers are taken away from those cities. There's still police, there's still Ukrainian partisans, there's still a bunch of like civilian people with Ukrainian flags who don't want to see Russian invaders in those cities. And I mean, it's so crazy. Sometimes it's so freaking cringy to hear thoughts from people who have no idea about war, about like how it actually happens. And the biggest tragedy is that those people are like official persons, you know, like in Amnesty International. Oh my god. I don't know how to comment this, but it was a very cringy statement, basically. So it's like we should leave. And better if we are not even in Ukraine. Ukrainian army has to go somewhere. Mars, maybe. Or Moon, or whatever. Find a place in a distant location, preferably outside Ukraine, and preferably outside Earth, and fight there. Oh my god. So that's basically what you want to know about Amnesty International. I mean, probably they had some very strong leakers the day before making this statement, in my personal opinion. Let's move on to the International Legion. So I've been asked a question here in the chat regarding the International Legion and whether they still enlist people. Yes, they do. So the other day I've been to some very specific place here in Kiev, and I'll talk about it a bit more in the future. And basically the event was that international volunteers, mainly from Estonia as well as Finland and Canada and the UK and the US, they brought a lot of vehicles for Ukrainian armed forces, and one of those vehicles was brought to our guys, our anti-air guys from my brigade, and I met this this beautiful person. It's a British volunteer. This guy is fighting at this point for our freedom, and men like those men are my heroes, literally. I mean, I have no words to describe my respect to people who come to fight for Ukraine, people who help Ukraine, and again, it raises, a very interesting topic, like, decent people. I believe that world is full of decent people, actually, and it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter where you live. You will, in most cases, in 90% of cases, and that's my observation, in majority of cases, whenever you feel bad, whenever you have a problem, whenever something happens to you, there are people who will always help you, and that's true. I mean, this is how we are born. Basically, we are born with this inner light, with this inner power that makes us able to help other people without without requiring or demanding anything in return. This is how people are made. And basically, why the whole world is supporting Ukraine is basically because of, I keep repeating basically, that's a parasite word. This is a proof for my theory, because world is full of decent people, and I think that majority of people in this world are decent. So this guy is a British soldier. He's a British volunteer with big experience, and he told me that yes, the Foreign Legion is still open for people. He said that there's still a lot of volunteers, like a lot. But the fact is that most of those people should have a combat experience, and they are best of the best. That's basically proves my words, proves what I was saying like a month ago or two about the Foreign Legion, is that they enlist volunteers, but those guys must be best of the best. And I'm not talking about even like their experience, but you see, there were cases when experienced guys would come to Ukrainian front lines, and after the first series of artillery strikes and air strikes, they would be like, where's our support? Where's our air support? Where's our artillery? And we were like, there's none. And they're like, but how do you fight? And we were like, that's exactly how we fight. So now it's a bit better, of course, because we received a lot of artillery from our partner countries and our allies. But the situation is still similar, because you gotta have guts in order to fight in Ukraine. Yeah, Russians still have a advantage in terms of vehicles and artillery and aviation. But now it's about having guts. So yeah. And by the way, I wanted to make small announcement. So in one of my upcoming videos, I will be happy to introduce a person that I think majority of you would like to see. I will not say his name, because it's still like being discussed and appointed and stuff like that. But he has a mustache, and I think that says a lot. The main reason why I wanted to make this stream today, reason number one, was to see you guys finally for the first time in 2 months. And reason number two was that, I've been walking my dog the other day during the airstrike alarm, and I thought I asked myself a question, and I want to ask the same question to Russians, and I want you to know about this question as well. The sirens sound whenever there's a threat of artillery strike, airstrike. We had like 400 hours in total of those alarms here in Ukraine, since here in Kiev, basically in Kiev, since the beginning of this invasion. If Ukraine, according to Russian propaganda, if Ukraine was brutally bombing and shelling Donetsk, which is, by the way, the most intact city at this point in Donbass. So, if Ukraine was brutally shelling and bombing and killing those civilians using our long-range artillery and stuff like that, for 8 years, don't forget about it, 8 years, then why the sirens in Donbass, in Donetsk specifically, played on February 18th for the first time? For the first time ever, those sirens played this year in Donetsk on February 18th. For the first time in 8 years. And you can find literally no proofs of those sirens being used at any point of this war. So that's one of 3 questions that I have today. Another question. Another question is, if the main goal of Russian army, again according to their claims and statements and all of their propaganda, if the main goal of Russian army is to liberate Donbass, basically it's one of their goals, because their another goal is to completely remove our president and government. Another goal is to remove all of our army and stuff like that. But they state that they came to Ukraine to protect people of Donbass. So why do they change? I mean, in those cities that were captured by Russians, occupied at this point, why in those cities they are changing all the road signs, the street signs, to their analogs in Russian language? Like, you remember when Nazi Germans were capturing cities in Europe, they were changing the road signs because, they thought that this captured city will stay German forever, and they were changing those signs. So why do they do that in places like Novakhovka, in places like Kherson, which are not even a Donbass. They are not even parts of Donbass. Why do they do that? And my third question is very rhetorical, basically. As of 2001 in Ukraine, there were 603 Russian schools. How do you think? Is it like a lot? I mean, for the population of 40 something millions, I think it's quite a lot. And of course, Ukraine is a multicultural, multinational country. We have a lot of different nations, races, religions, cultures, a lot of them. Russians are one of our cultures here in Ukraine. We have them. We have also Greeks, we have Georgians, we have Jewish people, we have Germans, and oh my god, we have a lot of them. But we have 603 Russian schools in Ukraine. Russians claim that Ukraine is suppressing the rights of Russian-speaking people, and I can literally make a video for you guys. I can literally go with my camera to Maidan, to our central square of independence in Kiev, and make a video with a hidden camera. I will just walk around among people and record them speaking Russian language. I mean, nobody kills them. Nobody is beating them up. Nobody is suppressing their right to speak Russian. You can speak whatever language you want here in Ukraine. So, Russians claim that Ukraine is suppressing rights of Russian-speaking people and yada, yada, yada. In Ukraine, we have 603 Russian schools where kids are taught in Russian language. How do you think? How many Ukrainian schools are there in Russia? You can answer this question quickly, very, very quickly, because there's zero. And Ukrainian diaspora in Russia is probably one of the biggest diasporas out there. So the answer to my questions is following. Why there were no sirens in Donbass for those 8 years is because there were no bombings and no shellings for 8 years straight. Why Russians are changing the signs in the occupied cities is because they're invaders. And why there's zero Ukrainian schools in Russia? Because it's one of the components of a genocide of Ukrainians. They literally want us to extinct. And that's one of the reasons why they brought this war into our country. You can Google things like Holodomor, which is a Ukrainian Holocaust, basically. 10 millions of Ukrainians were killed by Russian communists using an artificial famine in 1932 and 1933. There were actually two more Holodomors, with a less scale, smaller scale, but still deadly. And up to 10 millions of Ukrainians were killed by Russian communists in 30s. We have as much as 100 proofs of or cases when Russian authorities, which dates back to probably medieval times, they were suppressing Ukrainian language. And I think that one of the oldest cases is like 500 years old or something. So when Ukraine was occupied, at those times when, or those periods when Ukraine was occupied by Russia, they were restricting the use of Ukrainian language. They were prohibiting Ukrainian books and things like that. And there's a whole page on Wikipedia. You gotta check it out, guys, because it's very interesting. So basically, this racism or chauvinism, this Russian chauvinism, is centuries old. And here in Ukraine, we know a lot about it. In Poland, people know a lot about it. In countries like Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, especially Finland, people know a lot about it. So I think you gotta check it out. And moving forward to the questions. So I received a bunch of questions from you guys already. One of the questions was regarding Bakhmut. So Russians claim that, and they claim a lot, that Bakhmut is gonna fall anytime soon. And the reason it doesn't happen is because I've been to Bakhmut many times. I can tell you about those lines of defense that were made around the city like 5 years ago. Like back then, Bakhmut was basically a fortress. It's nothing like Rubizhne or Severodonetsk, nothing like that. Bakhmut is a fortress. And Bakhmut is, I would say, it's kind of big. Not like big city. It's a small city, but in terms of Donbass, it's kind of big and it's important. One of the things that people usually don't take into account when we talk about this war is that no matter what Russians say, they still didn't manage to capture any major city. I'm talking about city with population like more than 1 million people. Nothing like capturing Kiev, Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, the cities that were able to defend themselves. Nothing like that happened since the beginning of this invasion. Russians had a lot of casualties and they were forced to retreat, making this gesture of goodwill by fertilizing our land so well. Here in Kiev, in Hostomel, and they were not able to take those cities. But Kiev was one of their key goals, I would say, because they planned to capture Hostomel, they planned to capture Vasilkiv, they planned to use those airports as their air bridges and stuff like that. But they failed, because you cannot capture a city with the population of 40 plus millions of people. I'm saying 40 plus because there's about like 40, according to different sources, like between 42 and 48 million people here in Ukraine. You cannot capture those countries having like 200,000 soldiers. I mean, it's kind of stupid. So when this invasion started, Russia used probably 90 if as far as I remember, 90 battalion tactical groups and a lot of artillery in order to capture Kiev, Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, of course. Let's not forget about heroic Kharkiv, as well as Dnipro, as well as Odessa, as well as Mykolaiv. And one of the regional centers that they managed to capture was Kherson. It happened, I think, on the first day of the invasion. And Kherson is located very, very close to Crimea, of course. There's still a lot of questions why it happened so quickly, but we will investigate that, of course. But again, Kherson is, we can call it a major city, but it's just a regional center, and it's not that big. So population of Kherson, as of today, is where is it? So population of Kherson as of 2017 was 290,000 people. The population of my city block where I live in Kiev is almost 400,000 people. So you can compare the sizes of those cities. Kherson is a regional center, but it's a very small regional center. The cities where like decisions are made and cities that have influence over other regions are big cities like Kharkiv, like Odessa, like Kiev, of course, like Chernihiv, like Sumy, all those cities that Russians attempted to take and failed. So why did they fail? Obviously because they didn't have enough men. So they have dramatic number, like horrifying number of vehicles and artillery and stuff like that. This is true. They can inflict huge losses. They can destroy hundreds and thousands of buildings and structures, and in a word, they can bring a lot of damage. That this is the fact. But rockets cannot occupy territory. You need infantry to occupy territory. And speaking of infantry, the army in Ukraine is kinda bigger, like a couple of times bigger. So they cannot do that. But of course, they can try and kill as many people as they can. Speaking of Bakhmut. No, so let's return to the previous one. So why they failed? They didn't have enough men. So let's divide this army by how many people, how many cities were there? Like 7? Let's divide it by 7. So how do you even capture a city having like 15, 12,000 men? And how many men out of this number are actually infantry? So it's minus supply, minus anti-air, for example, because anti-air guys are not infantry, minus artillery, and yada yada. So there's like 50% of all those men that are left. They are combat worthy. They can actually go into city and try to take it. So I'm explaining all this to you guys so you could have a clear picture, like why there's so much destruction in Ukraine, why there's so many deaths among civilians, why there's so many casualties in general. But even despite that, why Russian army failed to take major cities, at least like one of them. And when we're speaking about Kherson, actually I think that Mykolaiv has greater influence on Kherson than vice versa. So that's just for you to understand. Same with Mariupol, by the way. And Mariupol is a completely different story. It's like majority of Mariupol is already destroyed. There's a huge problem at this point with different diseases like cholera and stuff like that. So I hope that answers your question regarding Bakhmut. They literally have not enough men. So currently they have to bring their troops from Donbass to the area of Kherson in order to try to protect it. They relocate their men also to Crimea because they are afraid that after losing Kherson, there will be a danger for them to lose Crimea as well. That's why they're relocating everything they can relocate from Donbass and to southern Ukraine, areas of Kherson and Crimea. I would say that they would need to concentrate all they had around Bakhmut in order to take it, risking of losing everything else. So the reason why they were able to take cities like, not cities, village of Rubizhne and town of Severodonetsk was because they concentrated everything they had around, like literally guys, imagine this, all the Russian army, like all those who were not involved into physically guarding the captured cities, they were brought and concentrated around a town defended by a battalion tactical group of the National Guard of Ukraine, my brigade. So if you remember, we were talking to Voodoo, and he said that there were something like 9 Russians versus 1 Ukrainian there in Rubizhne. So that's for you to understand just how badly they wanted to take it and how badly they lacked the personnel to actually do it. During those 30 days of what we have today, like June, July, August, right? So since July 15, they didn't manage to take any serious city or town or village in Ukraine. They literally stopped. As far as I know, in Kherson region, in the region around Kherson, right? Ukrainian armed forces managed to liberate approximately 46 or was it like 50 villages and smaller towns during that period of time. So they're moving closer to the very city of Kherson. Russians didn't manage to achieve any goals in those last 30 days. I hope this answers your question regarding Bakhmut and any other following cities that Russians promised to take, probably like Lviv or I don't know, Ivano-Frankivsk, whatever, you tell me. Another question was regarding our motivation. What motivates us even despite the fact that we're living in the worst days of our lives, basically. And first of all, it's a support of our friends, of our families. We are trying to communicate as much as we can, and because you cannot survive yourself like Russia, because we have a lot of friends, we feel supported at all times. And yeah, this helps us to rise our spirits. And another thing is, of course, your support, guys, because I received like 1,000 of letters from you with pictures and videos. And the reason I'm not doing a video yet is because I still have to process it. So it takes like 2 minutes to process one letter, like just saving those files, and multiply 2 minutes by 1,000 letters. So it's like 2,000 minutes that I have. It's like 10 hours. It's quite a lot. But I appreciate all of your letters, everything that you have sent me, because it will be used for good. So it's your support, people, because Ukrainians are supported by all the decent people around the world, and that means a lot. We have a lot of friends. I've been speaking to those guys from Estonia and Finland, and I realized that actually this war in Ukraine is a phenomenon because it united the decent people around the world. And yes, we also realize our great responsibility because we are protecting Europe, and we realize that if we are defeated here in Ukraine on our own land, this plague will go further into European countries. And yeah, Russians were talking about it a lot. I have this beautiful picture here. I hope that I will be able to find it. Just a sec. I think I saved it on my phone. I think I did. No, I didn't. Well, anyways, the other day we were talking about Russian occupation, like possible Russian occupation of the United States, and we were talking like, because Russians, it's on their forums and their chats, you can find that a lot. So they're talking about returning of Alaska to Russia. And it's seriously, they're seriously talking about it. They discuss things like, Alaska was always a Russian land, and Americans tricked, like literally tricked their Tsar and bought Alaska from him. But no, it still belongs to Russia, of course. So, yeah, I know it's funny. But we were like, what's the reason for Russians to take like American lands? I mean, historically, it's not even Russian. No, we came to, because like after surfing like those Russian chats and forums, we came to a conclusion that Russians still can do that. Why? Native Americans. So Native American, like millions of years ago, the ancestors of modern people, Homo sapiens, right? Those ancestors crossed the Pacific Ocean over the bridge, over the land bridge on the north between modern Russia and the United States. I'm not kidding. I mean, I've read this on a Russian forum. So the ancestors of humans, right, crossed this bridge between Russia and America, and they settled on the American land. And later they evolved into Native Americans, which means that they're Russians. Oh my, I was like, my brain ached, I swear. So that's one of the reasons they can use to invade Russia. I mean, things like that happen all the time. They find like craziest theories, like craziest crap you can imagine, and they're trying to turn it into a strategy, and they're so successful in doing that, because when other countries were investing into science, into economics, things like that, Russia was investing into propaganda and informational warfare. And this makes them the strongest in this field. So I hope that soon enough more and more people understand this, and we will literally start ignoring Russian media whatsoever, because what they claim, what Margarita Simonyan claimed as well, and Margarita Simonyan, as you probably remember, she was a chief of Russia Today, chief editor of Russia Today, and she stated, and she's not the only one who stated this, actually. I will dedicate some upcoming video to this topic. She stated that democracy doesn't fit Russia. Freedom of speech doesn't fit Russia as well, of course, because when people are free, the country, when people have a free mind, the country is weak. And she literally recognized that there's no point in even watching, even considering to watch Kremlin's media, because it's a BS. And she literally confirmed that. So I think that I will probably make a video dedicated to this, because, guys, it will be amazing. And with that, I'm happy to say that we probably finished most of the topics that I wanted to discuss with you. And I will be happy to answer all of your questions, guys. And by the way, I gotta make 2 announcements. One announcement is that 2 absolutely amazing guys, one from the United States and another from South Africa, they decided to make, they offered to make a merch. And I'm so happy to say that they did it, and you can find links in the description to this channel. All the funds will go to Ukrainian Army organization called Come Back Alive, which is our most famous charity fund that helps Ukraine. And all the funds from selling this merch go straight to this organization. And and those guys are helping Ukrainian army with drones, with scopes, vehicles, and other important things. So that's regarding merch. And another announcement is that today's chat is moderated by a very nice person. She's one of the creators of this the second link with this merch. My dog has a bad dream. He's like talking when he sleeps. Oh my god. So and she's moderating. Fuj, I'm having a stream here. Thanks. Just a second, I'm gonna go and calm him down, Yeah, so my dog had a bad dream, and when he has a bad dream, he's like, he's like speaking while he sleeps and stuff, and I had to, So Janine from the South Africa is moderating our chat today, which basically makes her a mercenary. She is a volunteer. Can volunteer be a mercenary? She's a volunteer, but mercenary sounds cooler, in my opinion. So yeah, thumbs up to Janine. Thank you so much for helping me with moderating chat and stuff like that. So guys, I'm ready to answer all of your questions, or like most of your questions that I will be able to read. Yeah, and my dog decided to go to other room because he doesn't want to, So, when guys on Telegram talk, what is cotton? Guys, this is amazing. Let me explain you this. And I will even show you. Because it's worth it. Just a second. Okay. Okay. All right. So here we have a vatnik. Vatnik is a very popular in Russia. It's kind of jacket made of cotton, and Russians are very proud with this jacket. Why they are so proud with this jacket? So because Russian army was so poor in the times of the World War II, they couldn't find a better clothes for their soldiers, so they used absolutely cheapest jackets made out of cotton. And this cotton, I mean, they're so proud with this. I mean, you cannot imagine how proud is every Russia because of a cotton jacket, because his grandpa, the picture on a stick, you remember, his grandpa was fighting against all those Westerners wearing this cotton, and because we were laughing at those cotton jackets, this makes them so furious. So their TV hosts, their activists, they all try to wear this cotton jacket from time to time to show that yes, we are poor, but we are proud. And people wearing those poor jackets will conquer the whole world because we are Russians. We are godly chosen people with great spirit and great soul. And so Ukrainians turned, basically not only Ukrainians, but oh, here it is. This is amazing. So in Russian language is called vatnik, cotton jacket, and all the people who support this idea of Russian chauvinism, they are called Gopniks, like this one that you see here on the picture. That's why we call them cotton. in Ukrainian it's vata. It's the same in Russian, by the way. And Russians themselves, like decent Russians who don't support all this crap, they also call Russian chauvinists vatniks, vata as well. So that's one thing that I'm happy to make you acquainted with. Cotton, vata. Okay, and let's move to another one. Gopnik is a completely different stuff. Chris. Oh my God! So I will dedicate this night to educating you guys. You gonna love this. Who is acquainted with the Slav style? Jesus, oh my, Okay. All right. My connection is so bad today, but anyways. Oh my God, I don't believe that I'm doing this today. I wasn't prepared for this. So this person, this young man that you see on your picture, is usually associated with so-called Slav style. It's when they sit like that and drink some beverage, smoking, looking absolutely ridiculous. That's a Gopnik. Gopnik is a phenomenon that originated in criminal rings, in criminal societies back in 80s in Soviet Union. So in Soviet Union, life was very, very tough. And by the end of 80s, when Gorbachev introduced this glasnost, this more or less free thinking and speech and stuff like that, so those guys were basically thugs, basically like street criminals, okay? And they turned into a whole culture on the post-Soviet space, like in Russia, mostly, of course, to a smaller extent in Ukraine, in Belarus, probably Poland, probably, I'm not sure. Tell me if I'm wrong. But the Gopnik is kind of culture. So it's like when bullies unite around an idea of getting arrested and spend their life in a prison. This is so cool. And they're listening to this very bad music that glorifies crimes and spending the rest of one's life in a jail. Yeah, and what they do is basically drink, smoke, use like drugs, and rob people. Basically, some younger, weaker people that cannot protect themselves. I live in the place in Kiev, which was very famous for having a lot of those young men around. I didn't see them for like centuries, for like probably the like 2010, for a decade basically. So I haven't seen them for a while, and my city block was full of those. They're all gone. I probably like evolved or went to jail. Finally, they followed their dream, and now they are there. But anyways, there's none of them around. There's like a lot of normal, ordinary teenagers and people of older age and whatever. I know that in Belarus there's basically the same picture, but Russia still has a lot of those, and those Gopniks are so closely associated with this Slav style, which is not Slav. It's just Russian style. So yeah, so I hope that this answered your question as well. I wasn't prepared to talk about Gopniks today, but yeah, I'm glad that you have mentioned them, my friend. Where did the name Orcs come from? So, Orcs comes from order, basically, because when this war started in Ukraine in 2014, and we noticed that it dates back to the times of Revolution of Dignity. So it's when you enter the area of Maidan Nezalezhnosti, our central square of independence in Kiev, first thing you see is that there's a lot of normal and decent people around. Like, how do you understand this? Because it was winter, it was very cold, and you see a lot of young girls, for example, running towards you and handing you a cup of tea, and they were like, dude, you must be so cold and freezing. Here's your tea. Get warmed. And then you go to some establishment like Kiev Town Hall, City Hall, and people offer you some kind of warm clothes or whatever, or food, some snacks, sandwiches, tea with ginger, because some volunteers brought ginger and we had tea with ginger. It's good for if you have sore throat. And people would care about each other so much. And then there was anti-Maidan that was organized by pro-Russian forces, where they would concentrate basically everybody that we fight against on the east. So there were like Gopniks, some thugs from eastern Ukraine, some criminals, and a lot of like crazy people. And they behaved like orcs. So we started calling them orcs. And the same is about like Russian army, because they behave like orcs. We were talking to our policeman recently, and the policeman from Hostomel, they were guarding Hostomel, and we came to a conclusion. I mean, those are words from the policeman that I have talked to, that a word DICK on a wall, we have a lot of those after Russian invasion, like some swearing on a wall and a pile of poop is a visit card of a Russian soldier. And we've talked to a lot of different people from different units. Everybody who ever saw territory that was occupied by Russian army can prove, and you can literally ask like anybody, any Ukrainian soldier, any Ukrainian policeman who has been to such places like Irpin, Hostomel, Bucha, Vorzel, like you tell me. So that's the visiting card of the Russian army, a swearing on that is written on the wall, and a pile of poop. That's why basically they are orcs, and Kremlin is a murderer. And because we all read some nice books when we were kids, we know that evil will be defeated. Is Starsky your real name? What is the origin? Katie asked. No, it's my call sign. I like here in the army we have a lot of call signs. You know, we have a lot of names. It's like when you see a movie with some character playing a devil or a Satan, and he usually says like, I have a lot of names, you know. So yeah, we have a lot of names here. We have a lot of call signs, and Starsky is one of them, basically. Yeah, my name is Andrew or Andrei or Andy. Yeah, this is true. Okay, so we have a question in a Russian. The no name asks, "Good evening. Is it true that Is it true that foreign volunteers receive Ukrainian citizenship?" This is true in those cases when they require this, because you can join before this invasion. You could only join Ukrainian armed forces if you were a Ukrainian citizen, and and foreign volunteers who wanted to join Ukrainian armed forces, they had to take Ukrainian citizenship. Here we, as far as I know, again, in case you require the citizenship, probably like because you will have problems in your country or whatever, we can grant you a citizenship. This is from what I know. So I hope it answers your question. Starsky and Hutch were actually serious. Yes, I know that. I know a lot of that. A lot about it. Any news on the TikTok squad? Yes, there are news, and those news are regarding the dude who castrated Ukrainian prisoner. This criminal basically serves in the regiment called Akhmat, and this is the Chechen regiment. And Christo Groziev, investigator from Bellingcat, he called this person. They had a conversation, and I think that this criminal, he didn't even understand that he was speaking to a journalist, an investigator of a Bellingcat. So he told him a lot of information regarding this, and yeah, basically we now know his name, and we know a lot of important information about this criminal. And I think that he will have problems. I think that even the fact that he doesn't smoke will not help him. The saltpeter will still explode. Is it true that smoking is not only dangerous for health, for life, but it also is dangerous for Crimean airports? Asked Hot Vikinger in Russian. I think yes. I think again, saltpeter is dangerous. Smoking is dangerous, and when you combine smoking next to a saltpeter, it can result into massive explosions like the one that you saw. So I think that a bag of saltpeter, if you smoke near this bag, it can explode with the same power as Fab 500 aviation air bomb or something like that. And they had a lot of them there. So obviously, yeah, it's dangerous. Um, there's so many commentaries, guys. I'm so sorry. Um, how do you feel towards Russian civilians, especially the majority who support the invasion? And how do I feel about good Russians? Uh, I would lie if I say that I love Russians who support the invasion. You probably understand that. As for the good Russians, let's not mention the joke about the good Russians. There are decent people in Russia, of course. People who help us with information, as well as people who help Ukrainians that were deported from Ukraine to Russian filtration camps in Russia without money, without any hope to return back. There's a movement, and basically it's like a secret, but yeah, there's a movement in Russia of people who don't support the invasion, and they collect money to help Ukrainians to return back to Ukraine and do other helpful stuff. So yes, there are decent Russian people. I remember as soon as this invasion started, I was on my way to Hostomel before this attack, before this air raid that happened in Hostomel. And one of my friends on Facebook, he lives in Vladivostok somewhere. He said, I'm very sorry for what happens, and I really hope that he said, like, I told him that it's fine, like, we will solve this problem, but you owe me a beer, big time. And he told me, beer is not a problem, but I hope that this country will burn down, like speaking of his country. So that's the way of thinking that I support. And I support the idea of Russia being forced to pay out reparations and pay for all the evil they did to Ukraine, of course. You know, again, there's a lot of people in Russia who say that we cannot do anything because we will get arrested. We are not going to streets and protesting because we will get arrested. 8 years ago, we had a revolution of dignity, and more than 100 of Ukrainian protesters, unarmed protesters, were shot by snipers. And if you want to remove your dictator, you gotta sacrifice something, and you will obviously be shot or injured or whatever. You will lose friends because this is how you fight. I got injured myself, and I had to spend almost half of 2014 in Poland receiving medical treatment for my wounds and traumas after this revolution. So yeah, you have to sacrifice something. And I was lucky, by the way, because a lot of my friends lost their eyes due to this fire by policemen. Um, a lot of them were stabbed, by the way, by representatives of this anti-Maidan, of those orcs that I've been talking about, and things like that. So yeah, if you want to remove a dictator, you have to sacrifice something. And we were told so many times that we will not be able to remove Viktor Yanukovych, our dictator, because he was like a man of mafia. He had all kinds of criminals united around him. You like imagine some kind of not like Don Corleone, because Don Corleone was a good man, but some kind of anti-Don Corleone, right? Some kind of bad mafioso, some dude who has a power, complete power over criminals. And imagine this dude a president of a country, basically like Putin, only in Ukraine. So that was our challenge. That was the man that we had to fight against, that we had to remove. And we were told over and over and over again that you will all die. You cannot remove this person. So we did it. And Ukraine is free after that. And we are now able to elect whoever we want. We elected a stand-up comedian because we could do it, guys. Because it was our choice. Because he convinced Ukrainians that he can do better. I didn't vote for him, by the way, but I respect the choice of Ukrainians, because this is how democracy works. So yeah, and whenever I hear things like, we cannot change anything, you don't freaking want to change anything. You should try. Freedom isn't free. Yes, that is so true. Oh, that's a great question by Marine. How come he first wanted to make deal with the European Union? Speaking about Viktor Yanukovych, was that only blackmail towards Putin? Do you think? It could be. So I remember that Putin offered a basically a bribe as big as one something $1 billion to this Yanukovych for joining the trade union with Russia. And at first, people celebrated the idea of joining the trade union with the European Union. And again, they were ready, to forgive a lot of sins to Yanukovych if he signs this agreement with the European Union, because it was like one of the first steps towards our European brothers and sisters, right? But then he changed his mind, and for example, I've been to anti-Maidan, to those supporters of Yanukovych, to their location, and I've been talking to people, and people were like, they were repeating those narratives that are widely used by Russian media regarding gay rope and stuff like that. They were like, we are against Europe. We are against joining those perverts, you know. And I was like, dude, you know that Yanukovych actually offered this to join European Union. Do you realize that you're standing here supporting your leader who offered to join European Union? And then something would switch in their head, like, you know, like some kinds of sounds of clicking and stuff, and they would be like, yeah? And I was like, yeah. So it was kind of funny. But yeah, return to your question. I don't think that Yanukovych was clever enough to blackmail Putin. I think he was offered to sign the trade agreement with the European Union by his subordinates, by those oligarchs who had a lot of property and a lot of business on the West. That's the only thing that comes to my mind regarding this question. And we cannot even compare the funds, the sizes of income for trading between like Russia, like if we had to choose between like Russia and the European Union. I mean, the was it like GDP or was it like defense expenses? I think it was like about GDP. So don't quote me on that, please, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I could be. But as far as I remember, the GDP of Russia is like 1.2. Is it like trillions? Yeah, like trillions. And the GDP of Europe and NATO countries is 48 times bigger. So what kind of trade do we even talk about? I think that his oligarchs and a lot of those people were actually clever people, because if you are dumb, you cannot become an oligarch, a multimillionaire, right? So they assessed the benefits for their business from trading with Europe. And they saw a lot of potential, a lot of benefits in trading with European countries, with West in general. But Putin decided to convince Yanukovych to sign this agreement to reject agreement with the European Union, this association, and join the trade agreement with Russia, which would inevitably turn Ukraine into modern Belarus, which didn't happen, of course. Because why? Because the source of power in Ukraine is its people. Okay. Any updates on Crimea front? Any more deep strikes? So, I think the next time Russians decide to smoke in a wrong place, we will all know about it. What is your version of Flight Simulator? Okay, so it's Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, the one that was released 2 years ago. Uh, I didn't play this game for quite a while actually, but I will as soon as I can. My favorite airplane is so. First of all, it's Milviz because Milviz supports Ukraine, and big thumbs up to those guys. Uh, it's Milviz Cessna 310. It's Fly Simware Cessna 4 414, and it's a very nice airplane, by the way. And Just Flight Piper Arrow Turbo. Yeah. Um, Microsoft Tourist Simulator. Yeah, I can talk about it for like hours. Um, you probably know that I was a commander of a BTR, and BTR is a Ukrainian armored personnel carrier. And yeah, I wanted to make. There's this game called World of Tanks, and I came up with an idea of making another game called World of BTR. And in my opinion, it would be awesome. It would be like one of the greatest games out there. So the idea is like introducing all of the guys that I served with, and there would be like NPCs or like drivers or stuff like that, because each of them had his own feature or a bug. So for example, I had this driver who liked one lady in Donbass, and when we had to go like on a mission, he was missing, and we were like, dude, like where is he? So he was visiting this lady, and so whenever you start this game and all the NPCs are randomly generated, and if it happens that this particular person is your driver, he is not there. And before starting the mission, you have to take your man and go to the closest village and find this man with the lady and bring him back, of course, and then start your mission. So there was another driver. He was like 2 meters tall, and it's like usually people like who serve in the armored units, like tank drivers or tank commanders or BTR drivers, they are kind of not very tall, obviously, because it's so little space inside of a tank. And this dude was like 2 meters something. So if you start the game and here's your driver, you should avoid going too fast, because if your BTR starts jumping, you are risking of losing your driver, because he's gonna get like hit. His head will hit the ceiling and he will pass out, and you will have to spend time to bring him back to life. And things like that. And I explained this idea to my guys. They were completely amazed. They said, dude, yeah, you gotta do this game when when the war is finished. So yeah, I will call it a turret simulator. That's a very nice idea. Thank you so much. Do you think getting 1,000 kilometer range missiles will win the war? I think that the war will be won after Russia receives so many casualties that they won't be literally able to continue their aggression here in Ukraine. One of our military experts, his name is Yuri Butusov. He's a journalist, and he makes a lot of reports from the battlefield. He spent a lot of time with our guys in Rubizhne, in Severodonetsk, and he's a very nice analyst, I would say, because I don't advise military experts usually, but I can definitely advise this one because he knows what he's talking about. So yeah, basically he said that Russians only will only stop after taking so many casualties, so they are unable to continue this aggression. And of course, this means that we have to use more of our artillery, more of our aviation and other measures against their personnel. At this point of war, we are using those to target some specific objects, like ammunition depots, like disrupting their logistics, like targeting their command headquarters and stuff like that. The biggest difference between Ukrainian and Russian artillery in general is that Russians use this artillery to kill as much personnel as possible. Ukrainians use our long-range weapons in order to target some specific strategic objects precisely, and that's the biggest difference between our style of fighting, let's call it this way. So at this point, we don't often use our artillery specifically to kill, to eliminate their personnel, because we don't have that many shells and that many systems. But whenever we can, we do strike some important objects, important headquarters and stuff like that, because Russians have already lost something like 10 generals, and we're talking about like commanding generals, and some crazy endless numbers of officers, which is great. But yeah, I would be happy if we could use our artillery to strike their like infantry, and I think that sooner or later we will start doing this. So I hope it answers your question. Okay, have you seen North Korean soldiers? I've seen Soviet soldiers because my dad was an officer in a Soviet army and later in Ukrainian army. So I saw a lot of Soviet soldiers of in 80s. And in North Korea, that's basically what I saw. I mean, when you compare North Korean army to all other armies, I can say that it's like Soviet army of early 80s. Again, we should not underestimate things like artillery, things like aviation, because they bring a lot of damage. Actually, aviation is the most destructive force in the world, except for nuclear bombs. But again, the task of artillery and weapons that bring destruction in general is to destroy. The task of infantry is to capture. And it doesn't matter how many artillery systems are involved into operation, stuff like that. Only as soon as a soldier makes a trench on this territory, it is occupied, or taken, or liberated, depending on the soldier and the task. Okay, and by the way, can you please tell me in the chat where are you from? Because at this point there's like 2,500 viewers right now. Okay, so I have a question from my Croatian friend. He asks, oh my God, it went away. Have you met or fought alongside any Croatians? They have been in the fight since 2014. That's true, because there were a lot of Serbian veterans of this war in former Yugoslavia who supported Russians a lot. And they arrived to Donbass in huge numbers, yet in, I think, 2014, 2015. And on our side, on side of Ukrainian supporters, we had a lot of Croatians who arrived to Ukraine to face their old enemies. And I, like a couple of days ago, I met a professor from Croatia. And by the way, I think that I have a picture. Wait a minute. I think okay. Whoa. Yeah. So I met one of my friends, and by the way, he has his own YouTube channel. I don't remember his name, but I think that his name is wait a minute. It's Orest Zub. Orest Zub. Yeah, so what he does, Orest comes from Lviv, and he brings a lot of different volunteers and bloggers from all around the world. And yeah, this man wearing a Ukrainian shirt is actually a professor from Croatian Institute, and he studies or educates people in communications, in so-called new media. And we've had a great chat. We discussed a lot of things regarding the hybrid warfare and things like that. So I think that as soon as I have a link to this interview, to this blog, I will definitely post it on my channel for you guys. How realistic is winning this war? Hello. So I think that it's realistic. Why? Because, again, take Croatia. So at the beginning of the war in former Yugoslavia, Croatia have lost significant territories. And at some point in this war, they were able to take almost all of them back. And I think that this is exactly what happens in Ukraine. As soon as we eliminate as much of Russian invaders as we can. And of course, it depends on the political situation in Russia. It depends on numerous factors. But what we can see now is that Russia has already spent like 50% of its offensive potential, and we didn't have so many losses as they did. And again, Ukraine is supported by the whole world. It's so hard to be an isolated country with the biggest number of sanctions placed on you on Earth, right? And have absolutely no allies except for Syria, ruled by Bashar Assad, except for North Korea, and expect to be able to dominate the world. I mean, they spent for, like, this big country, the biggest country on earth, spent 4 months in order to take a village of Rubizhne and Severodonetsk. Get real, okay? On the other hand, Ukraine is supported by the whole world. I mean, we have numerous allies, and despite the fact that our soldiers are risking their lives every day, and every day a lot of them die, unfortunately, on the battlefield, I'm sure that we will win this war, and we will definitely take all of our territories back. We have no doubt in that, even slightest. And of course we will win. It's inevitable. It takes time. I know that I will have no vacation this year. It's true, but I can trade vacation of 2022, vacation of 2023, and probably even vacation of 2025 to be able to see Russians being defeated. So I don't care. What will you do if Russia wins? There's literally no way for them to do that. That's why I don't even think about it. I remember that in times of Revolution of Dignity, we weren't sure that we can overthrow a dictator. So, like, I thought, like, what happens to me if I get, like, stabbed or arrested or shot? Yeah, I had those thoughts back then. And before the invasion, I wasn't sure if Ukraine is gonna win this war, literally, because I expected that Russia would invest into their propaganda, their media, their bloggers, their opinion makers, and Russia will informationally conquer the world, making Ukrainians fight against each other. I thought that Russia will be able to make a bunch of pro-Russian parties to promote their ideas here and stuff like that. But the worst thing ever Russia could do, for Russia, I mean, not for Ukrainians, was to start an actual war. And after the beginning of this war, I was 100% sure that Russia's gonna lose. There's no way they will ever win this war, or any other war in Europe, or any other informational battle from now on. I honestly believe in this because it was much worse. Like it wasn't worse in terms of casualties before this invasion, but strategically, uh, we could lose because if you lose informational warfare, you basically lose the war. And they had all kinds of resources. They had all the potential to win this war informationally. And they lost it so bad. They brought a lot of deaths, a lot of casualties here, but because we live in the era of informational society, right? They couldn't hide this fact. That's why all the world now knows that Russians commit atrocities, steal toilets, leave swearings and poop everywhere. That's like, it's like everywhere. It's like in Hostomel, in Bucha. It's in every single place Russians have visited here in Ukraine. They steal laundry machines and conditioners and send it through their mail to their wives. They steal GPUs that we found in one of my previous videos. So they're basically marauders, looters, rapists, and invaders, of course. The world now knows that, and we're not talking about like just Russian soldiers. It's in their culture. You are not born as a soldier. You are born as a Russian citizen, and then you are turned into a soldier at some point. You carry this in you because you are raised like this, and they cannot win any informational war after that. I receive it's so laughable, by the way. So every time some Russian supporters comes to my channel and under videos depicting Russian atrocities or like rapes performed by Russian soldiers and stuff like that, they leave commentaries, "Go Russia, we support, yay!" Of course, there are people who support atrocities. I mean, it would be strange if there were no such people around. There's always some majority who can justify like mass murder, people who justify criminals, people who support rapists, because obviously those people have something like that in themselves or such experience or something of that kind in their background. But again, as I already said, the world is full of decent people, and decent people are majority of our world's population. And I'm not just being overly optimistic. I honestly believe in this because I saw all those people. I saw those hundreds of your emails with photos and videos of supporting Ukraine. And I honestly believe that decent people will always win and the evil will always be defeated. Will you ever come visit us in the USA when this war is over? Probably yeah. Probably yeah, because I would like to visit a lot of my friends that I acquired since the beginning of this invasion. But this basically means that I will have to visit every single country on this planet. I hope that I will have enough time to do that. The leaders of Amnesty International should be on the Ukrainian front. We will see if they still have the same opinion. Let's say, let's put it this way. Civilians, civilian people who has nothing to do with warfare, with military service, with field manuals, with things like that, they are very, very bad at commenting what happens on the front line. So, for example, you probably saw numerous interviews from both sides. So it's, for example, when Russian media is making a video of civilians who say, "We saw it, Ukrainians were shelling our town." Or it's when Ukrainian media make a video with some locals on a controlled territory who say, "That were definitely Russians. I saw that." Question. You can see you can hear an explosion of an artillery shell. Do you know who fired this shell? Okay, if it was fired at a position of Ukrainian army, obviously it was fired by Russians, right? But I think that people who actually serve in the army or who are actually responsible for carrying out this operation, they know better, because you cannot separate Russian shells from Ukrainian shells by the sound they make when I fly or when they explode, because it's impossible. And when you see a crater, you cannot tell if this shell was shot by Ukrainian army, Russian army, or Martian army. It doesn't work this way. You don't have extraterrestrial abilities to just take a fragment and oh, I feel this fragment belongs to a shell that was made in a Russian factory in Rostov. No, it doesn't work this way. Militaries know better, because they have radars that can trace vehicles or rockets or whatever, and they know exactly the disposition of forces, they know exactly who they are fighting against, and things like that. That's why, they know exactly who this shell belongs to. So when we talk about Amnesty International and experts, let's call them SOFA experts, chairborne, that's the word, chairborne. They shouldn't. They can have such an opinion, but this opinion should be their personal opinion. I have a lot of personal opinions regarding a lot of things, but I don't think that they will be interesting for people in general. They belong to me, okay? I can comment on a ballet from a perspective of a person who never saw ballet, by the way, but I cannot comment on a ballet as a dancer, because I'm not. I think I should visit a ballet, by the way. No, it's a bad idea. But anyways, I don't make comments on Master Chief because... No, actually, I can comment because I can cook. But you got my point, okay? I don't make commentaries on a French language because I don't speak French language. Amnesty International has zero ideas about the warfare, especially about the modern warfare. And they... I don't know how to comment this. I mean, they obviously think that we should all just leave and go into an open field and stand there holding our spears or like swords or whatever, or muskets, and Russians will do the same, and we will have a fair fight, making sure that nobody is hurt, you know. Okay. So, what do we have here? Guys, by the way, it's already 1 a.m. here in Ukraine. Does Ukraine have a good battle plan for winter? Yeah, I can tell you exactly that we will make sure that orcs are freezing. That's 100%. Have you seen the new satellite images of airport damage? So, guys, I'm actually waiting for those images. I didn't see them yet. But yeah. Update on Lomachenko. Is he safe? He's a professional boxer. Of course he's safe. Even here in Ukraine. Okay, guys. So, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I missed streams a lot, and yeah, 2 hours into a stream. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to see friends, familiar nicknames, and I hope that I will make a new stream very, very soon. Not in a month, probably sooner. And tomorrow I'm going to Hostomel to introduce some very nice people to you guys. I'm gonna make a video blog with engineers, but what makes them special is that they are foreign engineers, and I'm talking about EOD specialists that voluntarily came to Ukraine, and they are demining territories. So I'm gonna make a video with them. Then I'm gonna make a video with our mustached special guest. I hope that it will be possible. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Also, I would like to say thank you to Janine, who is our today's moderator. I would like to say thank you again to Janine and my buddy Rudy, who made all that merch. I didn't even see most of it, but I will, I promise. And thank you so much, my dear friends. Thank you everybody who watches my channel. And thanks to everybody who cares, because you are those people who keep proving me that the world is full of decent people that will always help. My name is Operator Starsky. Thanks for watching.